From snowstorms to sunshine, if what was happening outside on polling day was anything to go by, the results of the by-election were as unpredictable as the Falklands weather. As camp residents headed to the polls, or as the polls headed to them, the choice was a simple one. Two candidates vying for one seat on offer. Jack Ford and Gary Webb were the candidates in this two-horse race, both wanting to become the 8th member of the Legislative Assembly to replace Ian Hansen, who resigned in July. The month-long election campaign saw both candidates head to the furthest reaches of camp, trying to win those all-important votes. As the votes were counted and verified, the courtroom held its breath as the returning officer stood to make announcements. The turnout figures were announced first, but a slight error meant that they were later corrected.
So the number of ballot papers that were issued at polling places was 150, and if you recall earlier I said 146. The number of papers spoilt on issue was 4, the number of postal votes issued was 44, the number of postal votes received was 40, so the total number of ballot papers cast at the by-election was 186, which means that the percentage of turnout at the by-election was 75.61, not 73.98, which is the figure that I read earlier. So, and we've checked with the spreadsheet in terms of the adding up of the votes and the votes cast, and they do tally back to the figures that I've just given you. So I am absolutely sure that the figures I've just given you are the correct ones, but apologies that we gave you a slightly wrong number earlier. But just to confirm, the percentage turnout at this by-election was 75.61%. Thank you.
Turnouts for the Camp Constituency in general elections have historically been high. In 2021 general election, we saw the turnout being in the high 80s, so this shows a slightly lower amount of people heading to the ballot boxes for this by-election, which for the most part seems to have been taking place slightly under the radar. The count continued fairly swiftly from that point on before the all-important results were announced.
So I'm now able to give the results of this camp by-election. I, Andrew John Keeling, being the returning officer at this by-election of one member for the Legislative Assembly for the Camp Constituency, do hereby give notice of the result of the by-election for the Camp Constituency as follows. The total number of votes cast for each candidate were as follows. Jack Christopher Ford, 122 votes. Gary Colin Webb, 63 votes. I therefore declare Jack Christopher Ford to be duly elected as member of the Legislative Assembly for the Camp Constituency.
So we've just heard from the returning officer there, Andy Keeling, that Jack Ford has been elected as the newest member of the Legislative Assembly with 122 votes. And we're here with Jack now. So Jack, first of all, how are you feeling?
A mixture of emotions. I think a lot of excitement. Were a lot of nerves up in the build-up to this, but mainly excitement.
And obviously, I guess the hard work does start now. What do you think will be sort of the first item on the agenda?
I think just very much getting up to speed with everything that's happening and needs to be done. I think the programme is quite full, and just need to make sure I'm ready to hit the ground running. I think, but yes, it's a lot to do.
And I don't think you're the youngest ever person to be elected to the Legislative Assembly. I need to double check those facts.
I don't think so, no.
But you will be the youngest person on the Assembly. So what perspective do you think that will bring to the MLAs?
I hopefully just add something beneficial, a different perspective, a different point of view, and I think hopefully that'll be a benefit to the Assembly and the country as a whole, I think.
And obviously you've been busy out on the campaign trail visiting all parts of camp. Is there anything that you've picked up during your campaign that you want to sort of really bring forward in the next couple of years?
I think one of the big things that came out of the campaign was that engagement with constituents, and I think not wanting to repeat something like an election campaign on a regular basis, but I think trying to make sure that we definitely put that regular working into going out and seeing constituents or being in contact or altering the way Gilbert House interacts with people to make sure we're getting that proper meaningful engagement and feedback from constituents, which we can then feed back into what we're doing in the Assembly.
And I'm sure we're going to be having many interviews with you now as you are the next MLA, but have you got a message for those people out in camp that did vote for you?
Mainly just thank you very much for giving me your vote and putting your faith in me to represent the camp. And I know there were lots of people I didn't manage to get to speak to during the campaign, and I think we'll definitely work my hardest to make sure that I am engaging with people and doing the best for the people of camp, but also the Falklands as a whole.
Brilliant. Well, congratulations again, Jack.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. As the courtroom in Stanley has cleared almost as quickly as the count took place, we now know who the 8th member of the Legislative Assembly is. And you might be able to see behind me people lining up to offer their congratulations to Jack Ford. There was a turnout of 75.61% in this by-election. Gary Webb received 63 votes and Jack Ford received 122, meaning that he has now become the 8th member of the Legislative Assembly.